Hello. Today I'm going to do a game between Emanuel Lasker and Aaron Nimzovitch. This game was played in the year 1914 at the tournament of St. Petersburg. This game, I think, is very instructional because it shows how practical choices in prolonging the struggle can prevent you from losing. And so this game is also interesting in a way how it shows how to play with a pawn down. Or it's defending difficult positions. And it shows Lasker's strength of his defense. So anyway, Emanuel Lasker started off with e4, and Nimzovitch played in response c6, the Carl defense, d4, and d5, and Lasker chose the normal variation of knight to c3, and this is often the main line. Though it can transpose into the four or the two knights Carl Khan, but in this one, Nimzovitch chose to diverge from general theory. He took He took on e4, and Lasker took back, and Nimzovitch played knight to f6. It's a very tense pick he chose. Now, it's sort of provoking a structural weakness or an imbalance. Either way you can argue. So Lasker, of course, exchanged. And also, Nimzovitch preferred also to choose the taking with the e-pawn also. If we go back. And this is pretty solid. Play can continue with c3, bishop d6, bishop to d3, castles, queen c2, h6, knight e2, queen c7, and bishop e3, knight d7, and queenside castling is probably good, and rook e8, knight g3, and the counterintuitive bishop f4, which is what Nimzovitch played in the past game. So I can just rewind a bit. In that variation. But in this game against Lasker, he chose to take with g takes f6, which is pretty ambitious. He wants more central control. Lasker chose the sensible bishop e2, developing. Although another idea could be c3 and the normal bishop f5 and bishop c4 or knight e2. This is modern sort of treatment also, I think. But bishop f5 is the choice. Or no, whoops. Oh yeah. Okay, so bishop e2, and Nimzovitch played the active bishop f5, targeting c2, taking the long diagonal, the favorite diagonal in the Carl Khan. And Lasker, the idea behind bishop e2 was to fianchetto and allow the knight to go to e2 instead of f3, which is more flexible. And Nimzovitch played queen a5 check, activating the queen. Lasker responded with c3, and Nimzovitch played the aggressive h5. This is seen in many positions. I like to play h5 against the Sveshnikov as white, because well, in the Sveshnikov you can have dual pressure on the h file, like or even in the Sicilian Najdorf as black. I like to also play the a5, and you can get dual pressure, you can get double pressure on that h file and get some great compensation, or even win material because of the threats against h2 if the king is on g1, etc. So of course Lasker takes, because he likes to, he's like Korchnoi in sort of similar ways. Like, he likes to hang on to material when it's good, of course. He's very positional and aggressive. And Nimzovitch also being aggressive with these active development. So he played knight to d7, and Lasker, being ahead in material, offers the exchange of bishops. And Nimzovitch accepts. So there's not too much of a loss of time in his development and activity against Lasker. And so Nimzovitch castles queenside, and Emanuel Lasker chose to develop his kingside with a knight e2, and Nimzovitch plays e6, controlling f5 and d5 squares. And if he wants, he can also play f5, and his bishop will have dual diagonals. Like, basically he's putting his pawns on light squares, so then his bishop becomes pretty stronger, like a lot stronger. And so Lasker plays bishop to f4, controlling the key diagonal against Nimzovitch's king. And Nimzovitch attacks the b2 pawn. And if it was me in this position, I could consider going kingside castles and sacrificing the b2 pawn. But Lasker, I think he's going for the sounder approach of just castling here, which is good. And now Nimzovitch is maneuvering the knight to the light square outposts of. He has many ideas. He can go on a4 and pile up on b2. I'm sure there's good defenses against that, and you can go to c4 and ask for b3 to be played, or something like that, and like weakening. And of course, you can go to the sensible d5 square, centralizing the knight. Different choices he has in this position. And so Lasker, I think he okay, this move it looks good, but the thing with this move is it allows black to at least equalize, and if not be better, because Nimzovitch has this fork of pawns on a2 and g2. And so you have to ask yourself in this position, like, if you allow this, which is the better option? Is it better to sacrifice some of your king side, maybe, but you'll have weak like squares, or is it better to have some of these covered and sacrifice on the queen side and play for pressure and play for the better squares? Lasker chooses, I think, the correct objective choice in defending a2 with his king and making his king safer also. In order to have some freedom, it's always good to make your king safe. And so Nimzovitch gobbles up g2. And, I mean, Lasker, he could play, like, bishop here, but I still think it's equal. Lasker's ambitious, and he wants to get pressure, I think. Let's see. If I was to pick with the engine here in this and check out this position, I think okay. So yeah, Lasker did pick the correct choice of Rook G1, but let's just see what happens if Bishop E3 was played. And so F5 comes, and ooh, okay, you can go Queen E2. I think it's basically just gives away the initiative mostly. Or DG1, which had to be played anyway. It's got F4 being threatened. It's just a very uncomfortable position to play, I think. And so Lasker chose a more comfortable way to face these challenges, it seems, with allowing the queen to gobble up F2. So, whoops. Ah, yes. So his response he chose, it was the active knight e4, counterattacking. Well, not directly counterattacking, because black can attack this f4 bishop. So, of course, he offers the exchange of queens, and Lasker picks the correct choice. Complicated. You always have to judge the position and know when you can equalize and know when you cannot equalize. And Lasker correctly saw that if you exchange queens, this is not too good, I think, because you can't get back this pawn because of this fork, or this x-ray, I guess, of these pieces. And I think actually maybe he's losing, I think, if we check this position. Yeah, he's losing. It says the best move is bishop g5. If you play here, you can just go for knight d5s, just pile up pins. Yeah, it's not good. So let's go back to the position. And so queen f3 was played, and now Nimzovitch played knight to c4, going for some great maneuvering. And Lasker plays king to a1. Now, in a mirror position, oh wait, whoops, not f, whoops. But in a mirror, like, okay, that diagonal, that queen can go to, oh, okay, well, this diagonal, I think, allows many tactics, pins of knight on e4. So king a1 is a great prophylactic move, just getting away from all the queenside pressure, which can converge in this direction. So yeah, Nimzovitch plays f5, further controlling light squares with his pawns and dark squares with his bishop. And now Lasker counterattacks on f7, and here Nimzovitch plays the best move, I think, which is bishop to d6, because it's counterattacking the f4 bishop, and there's no time to attack f7. And Lasker retreated. If you take, I mean, it just only helps the other opponent in this position also. You just give the free control of f7 and a free e4 tempo to get to e4 with his knight. You want to make him waste more tempos to get to e4, that outpost, that key outpost. And so Lasker picks the best route here. And Nimzovitch plays rook to f7, defending. Nimzovitch for that. And then Lasker played rook g2, going for the g file buildup and defending of h2. Now in a real game, h2 is a very, very dangerous Achilles heel to defend. There's a lot of pieces on that square, and again, like, if a normal player had this position, he would probably feel very lost because of he lost the key, g pawn, and the f pawn, and so the h file is a great build up for the other player. And Lasker, I think, brilliantly just defends laterally and just knows where to put the pieces in the correct spots. And so Nimzovitch played bishop to c7, and Lasker played rook h to g1, and the development seems to be pretty complete. And now Nimzovitch spends his move on knight to d6, and Lasker plays a good move, clearing the f3 square to defend that Achilles heel h2. And also, it is avoiding the forced exchange of knights on e4, because after the exchanges on e4, that pass pawn is strong, actually may even allow some great dual pass pawns on f and e files, and it's just not pretty positioned. So Lasker foreseen this and is picking the best route to prevent this. So now Nimzovitch played knight to e4, and Lasker played his plan as a response, knight back to f3. And Nimzovitch he played queen to h3, maintaining pressure. Now if we take stock of this position, I think this is probably one of the most critical this is probably the critical position of the game. This is very critical. So Black has a sound extra pawn. His pieces are well placed, and okay, one can argue the best line White could play is you could say that this is the best line, which is knight to g5, knight takes on g5, bishop takes on g5. But simplification is always terrible for the defender, and less material on the board would allow Black to exploit his advantage easily. And f4 could be played, locking in the bishop and creating more threats. Rook f2s you can try to get out with that, but you can pin with rook g8, and the queen would be awkwardly on e4. This is just very difficult to play, and I don't think a human can play this. I think this is only for machines, probably. I mean, you could try it, but I mean, it's very difficult. Anyway. Yeah, okay. Well, I'll even analyze a little bit more. Let's see. Queen e4. Black can play f3, just locking down more. I mean, I think f3 was that. Let's see. Oh, rook g8, queen e4. Okay, yeah. I got my analysis mixed up. So anyway, I think I'll just go right ahead. Black can, if needed, find some way to trade the f pawn for the h pawn. But in any variation, piece exchanges favor Black. So Lasker played a very good move. It maintains tension, a3, and Black I guess just mirrored it with a6. I don't think it has as much purpose as White's move. I mean, it's a good move. It keeps the tension, I guess. But yeah, Lasker plays bishop to e3, and Nimzovitch plays rook h to d8, doubling up on the d file, just in getting out of the way. I don't, that plan. I mean, there's not much you can keep the rook there and maintain pressure on h2, but White has one piece on h2, two pieces on h2, three pieces on h2. There's no other way you can get to h2, and so Black is looking for a different plan, and so that's why I think could be motivation for that move. And White played king a1 to a2, and I mean, of course, if you tried like knight g5 like I showed before, it's unfavorable because of queen to h4, and it's just I don't know, it's a very intense position. And now Lasker played rook d to Nimzovitch played rook d to h8, rook d8, or actually, well, in this game they repeated moves. I think that's what they did. So he played rook d to h8, and Lasker played king back to a1. So they're both playing the waiting game. And David Bronstein actually asked Manuel Lasker about this position on how he could defend it. And Manuel Lasker said he just tried not to make his position worse and tried not to make it better. So I guess that's a way, because many players always overextend or push, and so this patience factor I think is very important in defending. And now Nimzovitch played the rook back to d8, and Lasker played king back to a2. And now it's rook d to e8, which is what I've had recorded. So Black's plan, he wants to play f6 and e5, but Lasker decides to prevent that by distracting Black, and so that's why he did play rook to g8. So this distraction gives him a tempo after rook takes rook d8, and now Lasker attacks f7 with rook g8 to g7. So generally exchanging the if he exchanged those pair of rooks, then Nimzovich's task would be a lot easier, but his plan was prevented from that exchange, the first exchange of rooks. And the rook's active position on g7 restricts Black. However, this is temporary, and the rook cannot be maintained on g7. And so, anyway, Nimzovitch defends with rook to d7. Again, a repeating of moves. And Nimzovitch, not wanting a draw, plays rook d to f8. Now, he didn't have to move this to a passive position. He can gain some time and maybe even trap the rook with queen to h8. He could have tried. And the pawn cannot be taken. But, let's see, I think, I guess queen g2 maintains the pressure, and it renews the f7 threat. Now I'll show you what happens if he was to take on f7. And then you would just play queen g8, and okay, you can try rook e7, but bishop d6, and now you lose the rook for real. So you'd have to sacrifice the exchange here, and it would just be an absolutely terrible game. Because, I mean, you have dark squares, but not terrible. I mean, terrible composition. Oh yeah, okay. So anyway, this position is very difficult. And let's see. Now, you can try, well, Lasker did play c4, and now Nimzovitch tried knight to f6, but you can also have tried a pin with queen h5, and after queen g2, bishop to d6, it follows I think rook g8 could, I don't know, change that up. Anyway, I don't know. Stubborn defense is being played here. And Lasker played this brilliant c4. C4 here. Okay. Now black has options like yeah, my variation there was mixed up. It was incorrect in my notes. Now king to d8 could be tried, bringing the king to e8 in order to free the rook from defending f7 pawn. And of course it's slow. White could play knight g5, queen to h takes 2, knight takes f7, king e8, and rook g2. And here it's very dangerous and unclear, maybe. I don't know. And after let's see. Anyway, I think I'll just go back. It's always difficult to find a move. I think the computer suggestion here is queen back to h8, just like before. And yeah, rook g2 is the recommendation. It's very so this could counter something, the pressure maybe, queen g4s. It looks like there can be a dark square blockade. You'll have some pressure too to counter stuff. That's what the engine's analysis was. I'll take a look at that, I guess. Oh, wait. So there's some pressure. Anyway, back to the game. Lasker correctly evaluates bishop g5 is the correct move, pressurizing the knight, and it seems white has the attack now. Suddenly, black has some difficulties, and when there are difficulties after having a better position, there's always some psychology involved where your heart kind of sinks, stuff like that. So I guess, let's see. Back to the game. Lasker Nimzovitch sort of misevaluates what to do with the knight here. He plays the not so good knight to h5. And in this position, I think he assumed that I think he thought Lasker missed something in this position, but Lasker saw everything. I think he calculated this variation with rook h7, knight f4, leading to some exchange of queens. And he also looked at I think bishop e7, maybe. He looked at this. So that's what he was going for when he played knight h5, but I guess he missed Lasker's very dangerous tactical response. I mean, of course, I mean it's a way that looks like a blunder. Maybe it looks like I mean, because you can play rook d7, right, and keep the rook. So yeah, Lasker played rook takes f7 here, which is a strong move, like the absolutely best move. And well, this has to be taken. And so Nimzovitch took the rook back, and Lasker played queen takes e6. And rook d7 is forced to keep the rook. Now, I mean, on king to, let's see, king to b8. This is not good because of queen e8 check. And after king a7, there's an attack on the bishop after queen takes f7. Then we'll counterattack with queen takes f3 and queen takes c7, and black is in the driver's seat. Or white's in the driver's seat, sorry. And so Lasker played knight to e5, which is another incredible move, probably the only move, and it's a hard move to see. Attacking the rook, and this has to be taken. And then Lasker played queen e8 check. Now if rook d8, of course, there's mate. So he has to play king to c7. They declared a draw after queen e8 check, but this would be the forced draw with best play, which is queen takes e5, king to b6, queen c5, king c7, queen e5, and repeat the position like this. Any rook d6 leads to c5. So Lasker brilliantly had the better nerves in this game and didn't lash out with anything complicated. He didn't go for anything complicated as this. You know, it's a weird position. I mean, because you think, like, if you're black, you think you have everything under control because, like, you have rook d7, and I mean, he probably saw that sacrifice, but he didn't see that. He didn't look at it that far, and it's because of that psychology aspect. And so I hope you enjoyed the video and the game and the talk of chess psychology, and I look forward to you seeing more of my videos. So thanks for watching, and signing off.